So what is the method to win any argument with any person? Well, it's pretty simple actually. It's called the Be Human method. So in the Be Human method, our three factors are going to be empathetic, not attaching to our outcome, and winning the person's goodwill. If you stick around to the end, we're going to go over a bonus on how you can use this method to win any argument with a person, but specifically with a toxic person. So key factor number one, be empathetic. So we're working with humans here, and people like to feel important. Not only do they like to feel important, but they're going to remember how you make them feel. Emotions are the language of the body. Thoughts are the language of the mind, but emotions are the language of the body and how you make people feel. And people will remember how you make them feel, especially when you're in an argument or a disagreement. When you're empathetic, you also have to have a level of self-awareness of how you feel when you're in an argument or a disagreement. Because if you feel like you're heated up with emotions of anger and frustration, things of that sort, it's going to kind of influence the way you decide to react and how you think and what you say in the argument or disagreement. So first off, being aware of how your own body feels is incredibly important. Not only does that give you a step up in control because you're controlling on how you feel, but it makes it so the argument that is taking place has more clarity for you because you're able to identify key points of information to where the gap of understanding hasn't been bridged quite yet. So the last thing that you want to do when you're in an argument is start an argument like this. What you're saying makes no sense at all, and I'm going to show you a thing or two as to why you're wrong and why you need to agree with me instead. How do you think that's going to make the other person feel? Not only is that going to make that other person be on the defense much more and want to prove to you now why their standpoint is much more correct than yours, but you're going to make this person feel a certain way. You're probably going to make them feel uncomfortable and not important. When winning an argument is you want the other person to feel important. And how do you make the other person feel important? You listen to them. You make sure you're listening to them. You make them feel heard. You use your active listening skills when you're in an argument. That way you can fully understand what your opponent is trying to address to you first. Information is key when you're in an argument, and if you're thinking all of the things that you're going to try to say next to prove your point to this person, you're missing a huge opportunity to listen and gain information about the exchange taking place on how to potentially even win the argument. When we're being empathetic, we need to establish common ground, and that's where we create what's called equal footing. Equal footing is the equal communication exchange taking place between two people. That way, what's being exchanged makes sense to both parties. If we're having a disagreement about something, and I'm coming into the disagreement with a background knowledge of a level 7, and this other individual is coming in at a background knowledge of a level 5, there's going to be a big mismatch in the information that's being exchanged in the argument, which only drives and creates more confusion. And through listening to them, they're going to be able to express their point of view in their own way, and they're going to just feel more important because they're able to address, what's bothering them on the inside. Truly, in an argument, it's two people who are interested in the same thing, who have different viewpoints and understandings about the same thing. Key point number 2, it's called not attached to outcome, NATO for short. This is incredibly important because when you're in an argument or a disagreement, you could be wrong. We're not always right, we're all humans here, and in the Be Human method, you need to understand that you do not want to attach necessarily to your argument, because when you're attached to your standpoint, you're emotionally attached as well, which can cause pride to come in, which can cause your ego to come in and want to prove, why I'm correct. The last thing that you want is for someone to come to you and say, we tried to tell you, we tried to tell you, we tried to tell you, but you wouldn't listen. When you're not attached to the outcome, being able to create a win-win situation is much easier. Not only does that provide value for both parties, but through not attaching to your outcome, this is much more likely to happen. What you're trying to do is you're trying to provide value to the other person. It doesn't mean we're rolling over on our back and listening to the other person and just agreeing with what they're saying. We have beliefs that we believe to be true and things to be valuable to us that we want to express to the other person. It brings a huge level of confidence into the exchange taking place because you're not overly attached to just having to be right. Key point number 3 in winning an argument with any person using the Be Human method is going to be you're not trying to win the argument, but you're trying to win the other person's goodwill. A person's goodwill can be very tough to price because basically what a person's goodwill is their beliefs, values, feelings, and idea frameworks around a specific thing, which generally can reflect their reputation. And if you're coming into an argument and you're trying to diminish the value of things that a person believes in or feels strongly about, you're not winning the other person's goodwill. Because at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is not necessarily win the argument, but we're going to take it a layer deeper, and we're trying to win the goodwill of the other person because it creates more opportunity for success in the future. You can win an argument with what you say, but if you win an argument and you make the other person feel like total shit, how is that gonna, what are the consequences of that in the future, good, bad, or neutral? And it's not to be manipulated and try to manipulate people on feeling a certain way towards you. It's just understanding that people will agree with you a lot more when you make them at least feel important. You don't gotta boost their ego. You don't gotta make them feel super good. You don't gotta, put down your coat so they can walk over the rainy mud puddle type of thing. You're just allowing them to feel comfortable. That way you can get more information in the exchange taking place. So again, reviewing the 3 key aspects of the Be Human method to win any single argument that you find yourself in. It's to be empathetic. It's to not attach to the outcome. And it's to not win the argument, but to win the other person's goodwill. If you hit all 3 of these key points, you will naturally find yourself winning arguments left and right flawlessly. Alright, if you made it this far, I promised you a bonus, so let's get right into that bonus. And that's how to use the Be Human method to win any argument you find yourself in with a toxic person. And it brings up a story that reminds me of when I had to work with an individual who reminded me a lot of a toxic person. And it was just a total personality clash. Me and this individual, initially when we met each other, we thought, oh wow, this other person's actually, pretty cool. But as time went on, because of the personality clash and the difference of perception in life and viewpoints that we had, there was this energy that you could kind of feel between us, this dense tension. And eventually this tension kept building and building to where things were said, and it only basically made everything worse, right? It made everything worse because it's just 2 people who have different viewpoints, who are interested in similar things, but conflicting viewpoints. And in this case, very drastic viewpoints that were conflicting to where the other person would not feel important. They would insult me, right? It just was a bad time, right? It's a bad time. I'm sure everyone's been there before in the past. When you find yourself in an argument or a disagreement with a toxic person, this one method, when adding into the Be Human method, will increase your opportunity for success to literally win any single argument ever. And that is to stand in your power. Let me say that again. Stand in your power. Standing in your power is knowing who you are and knowing the value and worth that you bring into this life, and understanding that through treating yourself with kindness and through treating others with kindness without worrying about the judgment that other people may have about you, because you are so comfortable to express yourself confidently, to express yourself as, I am a person who brings value and importance into this world and don't deserve to be treated as lesser. And with standing in your power, it's obviously being aware of how you feel inside and being aware of how you're choosing to express how you feel inside to the outside world. Not in a way to where you're worried about stepping on eggshells, but understanding that the way I express myself to the outside world will influence how the outside world perceives me. And you have no control over how the outside world will perceive you. Some people will like me, some people will not like me, but no matter what, I'm going to be okay because I like me. And that's standing in your power. That's remembering who you are. That's knowing your own value and self-worth. Toxic people are people too who just haven't dealt with their traumas yet. We're using the Be Human method to touch points on being empathetic, not attaching to our outcome, winning the other person's goodwill while standing in our power. Tips to standing in your power. It's working with your chakras, right? So you have your solar plexus chakra. It's kind of right here in kind of the center of your abdomen, you could say. And this chakra is important for your sense of worth. This is who I am. This is me. This is my value. This is the value that I bring to life. This is how I feel on the inside. And basically, when you're dealing with a toxic person, you're going to have all these feelings that are, coming up on the inside, and you need to be able to express them out to this person. So how do you do that? You open up that throat chakra. You open up that throat chakra nice and wide where you speak your truth. This is how I feel in my solar plexus chakra, and this is how I am choosing to express how I feel to the outside world with my throat chakra. Got to be careful with your throat chakra because that's where all your karma comes from. What I am choosing to say, is that going to create more consequences in the future? Or is that going to make my life easier through addressing how I feel without overstepping into the other person's boundary and causing more problems there? I'm able to stand in my own power and project that out into the world. Through standing in your power, your confidence increases exponentially. And when dealing with a toxic person, you need to be in your power. You need to be in your power, otherwise they will take advantage of you right away. They will manipulate you, they will gaslight you, and until you do stand in your power, they will continue to do that. Which is why winning an argument with a toxic person is very hard, but once you've done it and once you've won an argument with a toxic person, it only gets easier and easier and easier because you become more comfortable standing in your power.